my colleagues who are coming to the House floor tonight, encouraging the President of the United States now to certify the release of this memo to the American public. The American public is a lot smarter than a whole lot of other people give them credit for. Present them with the facts, the truth, and they can form their own independent judgment as to what transpired. That was the first thought that came to my mind when I went to the basement the week before last, the basement of the House Capitol, to read this classified memo of the House Intel Committee, that this memo should be immediately released to the American public so that they have all of the facts. In addition to releasing the memo, I believe it's important to be releasing relevant material sourced in the memo. Now, tonight, the House Intel Committee voted to publicly release this memo to the American public, and at the same time, the House Democrats came to the committee calling for the declassification and public release of their memo. Now, let me add a little bit more context on this memo that the House Democrats came to the floor asking to be released. They did not allow the voting members of the House Intel Committee to read the memo tonight before voting to declassify and publicly release it. Let me repeat that. The House Democrats, led by Ranking Member Adam Schiff, went to the House Intel Committee tonight calling for the public release of their memo, asking for their colleagues to declassify the memo and publicly release it immediately without giving them the opportunity to read it first. I can speak for myself. I haven't read the memo that the House Democrats offered up tonight. I haven't been granted any access to read it. I'm not aware of any other of my colleagues who have been able to read it. I can't even confirm it exists. Now, after the committee meets, it's fascinating to watch the minority members of the House Intel Committee going straight to the cameras, from the hearing room to the cameras, to give their narrative. At no point did they mention whatsoever, when they were saying that they were outraged that the majority members of that committee didn't vote to publicly release it. At no point did they mention that they never gave them the opportunity to read it first. Now, what you don't see at the same time are the majority members of the House Intel Committee racing off to all of those same cameras to give their side of the narrative. The members of that House Intel Committee. What we're asking for is for the American public to get the facts so that they could form the judgment for themselves of this FISA abuse. I, too, applaud the leadership of Mr. Nunes and the House Intel Committee for their work to restore faith with the American people. As a former Army intelligence officer and JAG officer myself, I understand the importance of giving our intelligence agencies the critical tools they need to protect our homeland, assist our troops on the front lines, and surveil our enemies. However, it's critical that we strike a balance between national security and civil liberty to prevent any gross violation of individual liberties under the guise of national security. Congress has the responsibility of ensuring an appropriate balance is struck, and when it is not, the release of information we feel is in the national interest and of public importance must get out. And today, Congress took an important step in making this possible. Americans deserve the truth. And to pull the wool over the eyes of the American public insults their intelligence and debases the freedoms and liberties on which our nation was founded. Government transparency and accountability should be neither partisan or divisive. I would urge my colleagues on either side of the aisle, including those who have especially those who would have voted against its release, to evaluate, to reflect upon their position, and come together united in favor of my belief, of our belief, that the American public is a lot smarter than many others give them credit for. Give them the facts, and we have faith that they will be able to form their own independent conclusions. Now it's up to you, Mr. President. I would encourage you to release the memo. I would also encourage you to release relevant materials sourced in it. Americans have the right to know, and if we as their elected representatives fail to stand up for them, who will? The only way forward is to give the American public more information, not less.